All right. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Castalog. As always, this is me, Mostrino. This is my voice.
Welcome to the Monster Cat podcast. A place where strangers become friends and friends become family. Make the ground shake. Taking you on a journey, this is Monster Cat. Hi, it's Kovak.
Amazing.
Hi, this is Logan from Australia.
That was perfect.
That was actually like spot on, holy shit.
Yeah, bruh. And I'm Katz.
Amazing. All right, well, speaking of Monster Cat, as always, that's where we start out with the releases of the past week. Starting with Monday's release, The Raid by Cage. Personally, I wasn't too huge on this one. It reminded me a bit of Hot by Fowler, which I really didn't care for, although I know a lot of people quite like that one. It reminded me of that, but a bit emptier. So yeah, I wasn't too big on this one.
Back when the Abstract and Martin Horger track came out, this is sort of what my main thought was. Like, it could be really good if the bass wasn't just like one note and boring. And this is what the Raid reminds me a lot of, is that this Cage especially has like does his low end like really really well and has such an amazing sound design in that aspect that a lot of like the more minimal bassy stuff works in that way. But I think a lot of the off drops and the builds are a bit iffy, especially the vocal samples really sound out of place.
I was really happy when they signed Cage because I've been a long time fan of his music. I similarly to Kovac think his bass sound design is super clean, super good, and the Raid is just a great example of that. It's very solid on the low end, to say that, and I'm a huge fan of like the horns or something being used in the off drop. The build-ups are fine, but I think this track is just an all-around banger, and I'm very happy that they finally signed Cage, because he's the bass house artist we needed, because we're kind of lacking on that.
Yeah, I felt like this is like a more acceptable version of Abstract. I haven't felt anything Abstract has done, but this I felt it at least somewhat. I think it could have been better in a lot of ways, but I think the drops work really nicely. I think Cage's bass work is very clean, but my problem is with the off drops. Like Kovac said, the vocal samples are not very well implemented, and I especially think that the midsection, which I think it's supposed to be an orchestral midsection, but you wouldn't know it because it sounds like wet bread. It sounds like you dipped a hot dog in milk. That's what it sounds like to me. Like sloppy and thick and grossly unappealing.
All right. Moving on to Tuesday's release, the new Doomu track, Worst Part of Heaven, featuring Trove. Now I'm going to start off on Trove. I think he's among the strongest vocalists we have on the label right now, and I think he does a great job in here too. And the production is really, really cool. I'm not as crazy about it as some other people in here I know are, but I still do enjoy it, and I think it's very neat to have a more unique track on the label once again.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, Trove is amazing. I think he's one of the best vocalists to appear on the label. Just every performance that he does is like really beautiful and adds so much to the track. And I think specifically on this song for Dumu's production, the more minimal style that he's taking really works a lot better in house as opposed to trap, like in Breathe Again. And it gives me a lot of vibes as like labels like Ghostly and artists like Shigeto or Pascal or people like that. And it's a good thing to have that kind of stuff on Monster Cat.
Yeah, this song is amazing. I love it so much. Like, Trove's performance is spot on, and this is basically a return to form for Doomu, because you have Breathe Again, which was good. I didn't care about it that much, but it was a track, definitely. But
it's literally music.
It's literally music, exactly. And this is just so minimalistic. just showcases everything good that Dumu's new style does. It's kind of the track itself is kind of depressing for some reason. I think Dumu said he went through something, I think a breakup or something, because that's why the shifting tone is occurring to his music, like All for Nothing and Breathe Again. But yeah, this track is just outstanding. I love it so much. It's really pretty. Like I would have never expected a Dumu and Trove, because and like in my head before listening to this collab, their styles don't really mesh well. But after listening to this, they definitely do.
Contrary to what all of you were saying, I think Trove is not a vocalist that I've ever really felt a connection to. I think he's good at what he does, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to listen to him or to praise him as some godly vocalist. I don't think that's what he is, and I don't think that's what he's doing here. He plays it a lot more pulled back, and I think the song could have used something interesting in the vocal department, because in the production aspect of things, it's not my favorite from Dumu. I like when Dumu does house, but this is my least favorite of his house attempt thus far. I like Feather a lot, but it feels very flat. I think that's my biggest issue with it, is the progression. It doesn't really progress anywhere. It stays in one place, and the one place is nice. You know, those minimal drops are fine. But I wish it would have gone into something more. And in fact, I like Breathe Again better than this song.
Dang. All right. Moving to Thursday's release. Brand new Fool track with the Forgotten, Dystopia 2077. This one had a very, very promising intro. I love the world building that they had going on there. But when it got to the drop, it felt like Hysteria, but just like a little more like synth wavy. Like it certainly reminded me of Hysteria, although I do enjoy this one a little bit more. I just think that the intro had so much potential, and I think, you know, the drops, while they weren't necessarily bad, I just don't think they had quite as much energy as I was hoping for.
Yeah, I think part of what originally drew me to this track a lot is that Fool sort of changed up his synthwavy style a bit, but then I realized that he's basically, instead of just doing the generic synthwave grind, he just kind of stole the entire aesthetic of Cyberpunk 2077. So, like, there is no way that wasn't at least a direct influence, because, you know, the goddamn title.
Yep.
And other than that, like, it's a mid-tempo synthwavy kind of thing. My biggest nitpick is that this will piss me off and like nobody else, is that so you have the start and the sort of vocal line is like, oh, the controlling forces have taken over, the dystopia has begun, and then literally maybe a minute and a half later, the revolution has taken over the city. Like, it's just, what? Like, it's something like
Amazing.
Sort of like, I don't know, Riot spent an entire album trying to do the same thing, and it still felt rushed.
They literally speed ran the revolution. That's some quick storytelling.
It just, I don't know, it feels very sort of disjointed, and I don't know, it's...
What a power move.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's been a while since I've enjoyed a full track to the point of me adding it to my playlist. I think it was since Neon, maybe, like a year ago. And yeah, I love the world building, even though I'm not the biggest fan of the dystopian like world, because I think it's been done to death at this point. But in this track particularly, I think it's done really well. I really like the futuristic touch the drops have. They feel really clean, and I actually listened to the Forgotten stuff, and it's very clearly influenced by their style, because those like glitchy, like high notes are like very frequently appear in their tracks. So I can definitely see what they did, and I'm kind of excited to see what they bring to the table on their next release on the label.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I connected with this track instantly. I thought Hysteria was very disappointing for Fool, and I've been a Fool defender even in his return. Uh, I've defended him, but I couldn't really defend Hysteria. It was kind of boring, didn't go anywhere. But this I love. I absolutely love it. It's definitely a playlist ad. I think that he executes that drop way better in this song than he did in Hysteria. It's cleaner, it's crisp, and also I think it being faster at 128 helps, because I think Hysteria kind of dragged a little because it was a little slower. But in this case, I absolutely love the atmosphere here. I think Fool does a great job all the time of creating an atmosphere and then completely taking that away and just dropping straight heat. And he did that exactly here. I love the midsection especially. I love that synth that he uses. It's very well done, well implemented, and I think the only gripe that I have is I'm not a big on like the text to speech vocals kind of thing. But in any case, I still really enjoy the song, and that halftime bit when it turns into dubstep at the very beginning of that second drop is just fantastic. It feels like the world shakes.
All right, moving to Friday's release, the long-awaited Just a Gent and Smile collab revival. And I mean, I'm a huge fan of Just a Gent and Smile. I really liked Found a Reason. I loved the direction they were going. So I had some pretty high expectations for this one. And while it didn't necessarily reach those high expectations, I still quite enjoy this one. It's very cool. They do a lot of unique things that I wasn't expecting. So yeah, even though it's not necessarily like groundbreaking or anything, I think that what it was going for, I think it executed it very well, and it's a neat track overall.
Yeah, I think I really enjoyed that. That both artists really went into a different style than their last collab, Leave It All, which is like a really sort of nice future bassy kind of thing. But yeah, this one, a lot of people said like, oh, it's Sprite House, like it's that very sort of future bassy influenced future house kind of deal. And it just has like, it's a perfect combination of like Smile's sort of knack for writing really sort of memorable and nostalgic melodies, as well with Just a Gent's insane sound design. But my one gripe with the track is that the percussion, especially in the beginning, just sounds really, really like loud, like sort of almost out of place loud, which is just sort of a weird touch. Apparently the track was like originally written or originally made in like 2016, so that kind of makes sense, but still.
I wasn't really disappointed by this one. It's really good. I really like the funkiness to it, and I didn't expect this at all. But then again, if you follow Just a Gent's music, you never really know what to expect. He comes out with so many different ideas and styles every time. But I especially didn't expect this from a Smile collab. I thought it was going to be some future bass with cool sound design or something, but we got Funk, which was, or Sprite House, or Funky Sprite House, however you want to call it. It's super cool. I love the sound design. I think the progression is super nice. The track itself is super blissful. I love how it feels almost childish at points with those sound effects playing in the background. I love how it feels like it's sort of immersive, but in like a more childish and funny way. I don't know. It feels like it's not trying to take itself too seriously, but the track itself is really cool. So yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, you can obviously hear the similarities in style to songs like Sprite and Airglow, and big surprise, the song that sounds similar to those other songs, is my favorite song of the week. Everything works here. I think it's very different. It was not what I was expecting from a collaboration between them at all. I didn't know that Just a Gent would ever make that kind of sprite house, but it works so well. I love the things that I can pick out in this song that were clearly like Just a Gent's influences with his sound design. I like the little bubbly little popping sounds. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, it sounds very, very bubbly and funky, and I really enjoyed this. And yeah, I'm definitely coming back to it.
All right. And then finally, Saturday's release, the last half. I believe this is the last Half an Orange remix we're going to be getting. This is the Vitamin C remix of Blink 182. Now, really quickly before I discuss the remix, I actually quite enjoyed the original. I thought it was actually pretty solid for Half an Orange. The production was nice, and I like the vocals there. And this had a pretty promising intro. I think it did a good job of blending the original with like a more like rock kind of tone, and it actually meshed pretty well. And then you got to the like robotic vocals that just came out of nowhere and feel hilariously out of place. And then I know I mentioned this when I was first listening to it, but that drop sounds like something Streaks would make, which is not a good sign. So yeah, this had potential, but it honestly turned out being a mess for me at the end.
Yeah, sort of the same thoughts, at least on the original Blink 182. I think the lyrics, as most Half an Orange songs are, the lyrics aren't very good. But the production, especially that one, it's not like anything special, but for what it is, it's just a really nice sort of late night sunsetty future bass kind of song. Like, it's just something nice. It's nothing that I'll really go back to, but it's at least enjoyable. However, this thing is currently my least favorite Monster Cat track of the year. I think what it does right is like the first 15 seconds where it's just a guitar, where it's just like layering of guitars and just like a bit of bass. And it sounds like it's really going somewhere. It sounds like it's sort of just like an uplifting, straight up like alt rock version of the track. And then it starts going down, and then it starts very much turning into 100 gecs, but without any of the irony or self-awareness. So it's just like an automatic, like trap percussion on a rock song is an automatic turnoff for any song that I listen to. And on top of that, it just feels so out of like, the rock vocals that they've added feel so extremely out of place, and the content ID thing is just really, really like, it just throws off the entire energy of the track, only to just make it more 100 gex-y, I guess. Probably never ever listen to it again. It's like a 1 out of 10.
Like you guys, I can appreciate the intro and the idea behind the track. Maybe that could be a stretch, but maybe. And I guess, yeah, I don't know. I guess it's original for what it is on the label, but it's just not good. It's just not good. It doesn't really execute what it was going for well at all, and it was a complete mess. Though I do prefer this over the Bijou remix.
Yeah, though that's not saying much at all.
That's like, this one's a 1, and the Bijou remix is a 1 too. So, bro.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I do have to say that this is not a remix by turn of the century one-hit wonder female pop punk singer Vitamin C, known for her 2000 hit Graduation.
I'm glad it's not. That would be such a disappointment, bro.
I am actually glad that it's not her, because this sucks. But also, it is currently incorrectly attributed to her on Spotify, so that's funny.
Bro.
Yeah. Bro. I mean,
bro.
My first thought before I even tried to figure out who it was by was that it might be like a DJ not Porter Robinson remix kind of situation where it was really a VIP, but it was, phrased like it was a remix. And Half an Orange said that they had received some encouragement to do more with electric guitars, and they're like, yeah, and this is I see this remix as a failed experiment. I don't want more of this from Half an Orange. What I do want more from Half an Orange is collaborations, which is good because their next collaboration is with Nitro Fun.
Woohoo!
Which is good because when they collaborate, they get carried hard by better artists.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the remixer on this track is not a different artist, so they can't carry Half an Orange vocals hard. Blink 182, the original was boring, but this is just plain offensively annoying. And that robot humans. This track has been flagged for copyright. Oh, it makes me cringe, and I'm just like, I'm gonna pass on this. I'll check back in a couple years, see if Half an Orange is any better.
But
When
it's
that
got to
robot voice
establish
actually-
the Half an Orange cinematic universe. Or
Yeah. Most
We have to
ambitious
appease the
crossover.
Fortnite lore.
Yes. Yes. Character development. But yeah, when that vocal showed up, I actually laughed out loud. Like, actually.
Yeah, but it's not like a laugh like, haha, the vocal's funny. It's like laughing at how dumb it is.
Like,
Yeah.
like it makes
It's like
me
a cringe
clench my
laugh.
teeth together.
Yeah. It's like an
Yeah.
awkward, uncomfortable laugh.
I was actually dying while listening to this track. It was so funny. Like, I didn't know what was going on half the time I was listening to this track on the first time.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of of the Brando remix. That's just a work of art,
it's
honestly.
Brando.
I will
It's
say,
like when your grandpa says something obviously racist and you're just like, oh, grandpa, you're so old.
yeah, I will say 100 gex better than this.
And that's a comment that carries a little bit of weight, I won't lie.
I mean, I at least give them a lot more credit than I think a lot of people do on the server, but
All right. Moving on to Bitbird, only 2 releases. First one from Blank Forms or blank4.ms, 92 senses. This one, I didn't really care for it. It was nice, and it would actually be, very nice background music. But as a track, it just kind of seemed to drag a lot and didn't really do too many things interesting for me.
I think Blank Forms has a really sort of interesting future ahead of him because he's sort of like one of only like 2 artists that does this very minimal and noisy yet melancholic ambient stuff. The other person being the Caretaker, but the Caretaker's now a retired alias. So now he's pretty much surprisingly the only one really sort of pushing this style. So I think, and like this is just sort of, there's nothing a whole lot to say about it, but it's just like a really smooth, like really sort of like, it's something that you can kind of just get lost in for like a short amount of time. And yeah, it's just not a lot, but it's just a really nice song.
Definitely a nice background track, but I just can't bring myself to care about it. It doesn't really do anything to catch my attention, and yeah, I don't know. It's just literally music.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's not bad. At least it's not bad. Let's be thankful for that. It's not like Wales EP level.
Ooh,
No, that's
It's
rock bottom.
It's just a pleasant listen, but it's not something I would or really anyone else would go out of their way to seek to listen to. It doesn't have very much replay value. Like I said, it's good background music. But in any case, I think, it exists.
It like Kat said, it's literally music. Then the other release from Bitbird from this past week, new Drulu track, Open Blinds. This was pretty different for them, but I think it's just as good as a lot of their other stuff. The production value is, same level. It's great, and yeah, I really enjoy this one as well. I think it was really cool to hear them trying out something a little bit different than the usual.
Yeah, this is pretty good. I think the lyrics by whoever does the lyrics, I think it's Vincent, is his name. It's the music guy. I think he does them decently well. The lyrics themselves are very much like in a similar vein to a certain Monster Cat artist that keeps on writing songs about how they're getting older and everything is nostalgic. But this one is done like in a slightly more mature and non-referential way, which is nice. And well, the production in like the first half is sort of like standard for modern Drulu. I think the second half has a lot of sound design features as well as the trumpet at the end is really nice. But we will get to this later. But I still have like a shaking feeling that that this, along with a lot of modern Drulu, really doesn't hold a candle to like their 2017, early 2018 stuff.
This is a great track. I it, it how do I phrase this? The drop completely threw me off. I didn't expect like a more mid-tempo-ish drop. I did not expect that at all. I actually expected to be a bit disappointed by this because I thought it was just gonna be like I Can't Wait type future bass or something, which was an okay track, but I didn't really care about it that much. The lyrics actually kind of cut deep, to be honest, and especially one of the phrases that's like, "I can't believe I'm losing my time by hating myself because I'm not spending it right." That
Yeah,
one,
that one was good. Very well
that
phrased.
yeah, that one was really good. Like that line actually like hit me and struck me as like fantastic. And yeah, the drops are super clean. I really like this, and I actually really do love the nice like little arpeggios they put in the drops. Those are really nice too.
I'm gonna be honest. I listened to way too much Drulu for a good stretch last year, and I have to feel like I completely burnt myself out on them, which is a shame because I still think they're very, very talented artists. But especially with recent releases, I have failed to connect with a lot of Drulu's recent stuff. But with this song, I connected with it instantly. This is the most I've felt a Drulu song in the past year and a half. It really speaks to me. And hey, good nostalgia vocals that aren't half an orange level,
Yeah.
they're good. And oh my god, I really connected with the vocals because it's just a fucking mood, isn't it? Like when he said you can all go to hell, I felt that, yeah. I connected with the lyrics. I've never really considered Drulu as particularly strong lyrically. They're always production oriented first, but I think this is one of the first times where I can really say that the lyrics, above all, stand out, and the production is not bad either. It's very clean, as is the norm for Drulu. But in any case, it complements the vocals very well, and I absolutely love this track.
Yeah. Moving on to the other label we're discussing today, past week releases of Mad Zoo, which was only a double-sided single from Aleph and Echo, Semblance and In Between. And these two guys are, I consider them both to be phenomenal artists. And when they join forces, it's just amazing seeing both of like all the talent kind of colliding. And I think that while this isn't necessarily either of their best work, I still think it's so great. you can definitely hear the detail they put into it. The sound design is amazing, and yeah, it's just really, really clean listens for me.
Yeah, I was also really, really excited for this because on one hand, Echo, yeah.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I really think Aleph is one of the most sort of underrated artists in like this very sort of experimental drum and bass scene. So well, my expectations weren't like completely met, which would have been almost impossible. But I really think, especially the semblance is really, really good. I think it really captures the best part of both of their styles.
Mm-hmm.
And then, while I'm not exactly the biggest fan of In Between, I think it's very it's almost safe for their standards. It's still a fun listen, and I think it still has sort of the typical attention to detail that their songs have.
I mean, safe for Echo standards is still fucking incredible.
Yeah,
so-
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, In Between is super nice. Semblance is like, oh my god, it's amazing. I love it. It's basically what I expected from these two. Three actually, because Eccles is a duo. So, bruh. But yeah, incredibly talented artists join forces and make an amazing track. It's a story as old as time.
Yeah, I felt this. I'm not as big into Eccles' style as a lot of people here are, but I definitely felt that these two tracks were very good. I definitely prefer Semblance out of the two. I think it's overall more interesting, and it goes into a satisfying place. It progresses very nicely. I think the sound design is just impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very well done. And yeah, I can see myself listening to this very often.
Mm-hmm. Then moving on to just two other items before we head into our throwbacks that were also released this past week. First one is the new Anima drop EP, Summer Nights, which was actually my first time actually suggesting something to cover in this podcast. And, you know, Anima drop has always been a really, really great artist to me. He usually leans more towards kind of synthwave and especially melodic dubstep. It's so good, but this was in a different direction. And while I felt like Warm Feelings and All I Need were nice, they weren't necessarily super great. Really, the main thing that compelled me to kind of put this here was the title track, Summer Nights. It was in a very similar vein to the Casbo song, Snow and Gutenberg, or however it's pronounced, which is one of my favorite songs out there. And I think this does that style quite well as well. I really love the chord progression there. And, you know, it all works together to create that kind of atmosphere. So yeah, overall, I quite enjoyed this EP, but that one's definitely the highlight for me.
Yeah, I'm not as much of a fan as I think other people are. I think the more house leaning track that I'm really like forgetting it on the names for these ones, but the more house leaning track on the
All I
EP,
Need?
I thought, yeah, All I Need, I thought was sort of very run of the mill for that style of house music, and didn't really think too much of it. And the two ambient tracks are sort of what you guys thought a lot of the Blank Forms track, where it's like it's a nice feeling, but at the end there's not really much to them.
Yeah, it's a nice listen. Like the Pierce Fulton album last week, I don't really have much to say about this, but in general, it's just a fun and nice listen all around. You can't really go wrong with coming back to this, even though I probably will only come back to Summer Nights.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Mhm.
I'm kind of glad that you recommended this to talk about, because otherwise there was no chance I would have noticed that it was a thing. Now, I don't know how all of you are coming to this conclusion, but by far my favorite track is All I Need. It's the most well-rounded track, and it goes into the most interesting places. And it gives me a real good sense of nostalgia for that kind of older future house, and it was just kind of a budding genre, and as well, I think the trap sections were very very well done. I think the entire song was one of my favorites. Definitely a great release, one of my favorites that I've heard this year. As for Summer Nights, I think Summer Nights is okay. It's good. It doesn't blow me away, but it's a relaxing listen, and the intro is fine as well.
All right. Then moving on to our last item from this past week, From Here on Blind EP by Tom Finster. And I know I've already said this like a million times already for other artists, but Tom Finster as well is an artist who I have a whole ton of respect for. You know, his stuff has been incredible lately, and, you know, so much talent there. And I think that this really is no different, does a great job of showing that. And all of these, you know, you can hear the work that went into it. And the one that stood out to me the most was Heavy. Like, that one's like an absolute slapper, but all of these are really great. So yeah, I'm just a huge fan of this EP.
Yeah, compared to like a lot of the artists here, I really don't have a whole lot of experience with Tom Finster's stuff. I'd listened to Fly Murray's collab with Hudson Lee and Hilly, which was, I think, his most recent track before this, other than Eden Falls. Oh, and also Eden Falls. And all of those really sort of, like, they caught my interest, but they didn't really, like, there's something that I enjoyed and probably added to, like, my playlist, but I wouldn't seek out other than Hilly, which is an amazing song.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend listening to it. But this EP definitely caught my eye, and I'll definitely be looking forward to a lot more of his stuff in the future. I think he has a lot more of like a visceral and noisy sort of take on a lot of these sort of tropes and a lot of these experimental drum and bass scenes, and especially the last two tracks are really big standouts. I will say that the second Echo Map, or the Echo Map collab, Eyes Closed, is sort of loses my attention because it really feels like it's a lot of different ideas connected, barely connected to each other. But other than that, it's a really good EP.
Yeah, I've been following Tom Finster ever since he released Healy.
Yeah.
It's just a fantastic track, as you all mentioned, and I binged his entire discog like a month ago, and I've been coming back to his music a whole lot. Like, I don't know, Our Fears Won't Save Us.
Yeah, that one's so good.
Yeah, that one's insane. Let Me Have a Crisis is also fantastic. Flimmer. Oh my, yeah, I was incredibly hyped when I saw Tom Finster was releasing an EP, and I wasn't disappointed by it at all. Like, yeah, everything is so intricate. Everything is just so visceral, as Kovak said. Everything is so, like, crazy. It almost feels like it's way too much noise at some points, but it kind of holds back, and it's just so cool, so clean. Everything about Tom Finster's music stands out to me as, like, incredibly detailed. Not like echo type detail, but a different type of noise wally detail. And especially in tracks like Heavy. Heavy is like an actual banger. Definitely going in my best tracks of the year. Outstanding track. And the sound design in that track is bonkers. Like, really. Yeah.
You know how I feel about Neurofunk and Halftime. So I hate all of the tracks here. It's just noise, and it's too hectic to even be remotely enjoyable. I don't think that there's a point where it goes melodic enough where I can pick something out to cling to even try to enjoy for a second. It's all just it's too everywhere. Overall, definitely not coming back to this EP. I do not like any of the tracks. I suppose that You Too Much is the most tolerable for me. But without a doubt, you know me, I hate Neuro, everything, and just...
This is so sad. Well, Tom Finster, you got 3 out of 4. That would be a win in my book, but unfortunately, of course, it's not for everyone.
Tom Finster's poggers.
Now, finally moving into our throwbacks, we've got a handful in here. We've kind of completely changed the format of these so that it's not only Monster Cat and we're covering any year and any day. So first one on here from Monday, turning 5 years old, is the Kirby and Fox Stevenson collab Hua, which, I mean, I'm not really so certain about my thoughts on this one because, of course it's iconic, but it's in a style that I think has been done much better many times than in this track. So, it's a nice listen. Of course, it's iconic, but it's not something that I actually come back to, regularly.
Yeah, I think back when I, 3 or 4 years ago, when I only listened to, spinning records in, Big Room, back when I had literally no taste, this was one of my favorite songs of all time. I think, I'm not sure what I entirely saw in it, but I really loved it. And now it's not as much. I think even in, his Future House era, Fox Stevenson has some much better stuff like Tico or Sweets or Comeback, which is a really, really good glitch hop song.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think my biggest problem with this is that just the main lead really doesn't work with the track and just really sounds annoying. And it just doesn't really have much other than that. I do enjoy the drum and bass VIP of it, though.
This is a throwback. Just an absolute throwback, and I still hold it close to my heart, even if it's not as good as Rubber. I still really like this track. It's just an overall fun listen, even if it's not the best. It's not great in production. Something about it, just the bounciness and stuff, just makes it a fun listen. Like, I wouldn't actively seek it out, and I don't really enjoy the track that much, which is kind of ironic, but it's just a fun track, and yeah, it kind of brings me back to my bass house face.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what this track has to do with hoo-has. In any case, it's I don't know. It exists. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a spinning track from way back when.
And then moving on to our next throwback from Wednesday, we've got a handful in here. First one, Eden, I Think You Think Too Much of Me, turning 4 years old. I know I mentioned this last episode, but Eden is one of my favorite vocalists out there, and I think his talent is on full display here. There's so many solid tracks in here, and I just overall it's really, really well done. There's a whole lot of emotion behind it, and Eden's music very much appeals to me, and this is no different.
Yeah, I think this is, at least in the first half, for the collection, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll sort of section, I think is by far one of the best examples of that sort of indie-tronica, R&B, alt pop phase that sort of was brought up by artists like Eden and Cry Wolf and Unlike Pluto and Steven and whatnot. I think Drugs and Rock and Roll are still both some of my favorite songs of all time. Rock and Roll especially, just how it sort of contrasts the very bombastic and sort of aggressive intro half to the more remorseful and regretful second half. It's always been amazing. I think while it does sort of lose itself a bit in the second half, I'm not really into Fumes or EXO all that much, but Circles is amazing. And yeah, it's just an amazing EP. I think it's been such an influence for me to get into more alternative leaning music in general, and I'm just really happy that this EP was the thing that led me to that.
I think this is might be Eden's best project. Maybe, I don't remember what the other album was called. Maybe
Vertigo and No Future were his other ones that I know of.
Yeah. I don't know if this is better than Vertigo, but I've certainly come back to this more. I love Eden's voice in general. He's such a great singer. I love the style that he's bringing to the table in this album. I really do love both Drugs and EXO. EXO holds a special place in my heart, particularly because I've been singing that track ever since I started singing.
Nice.
So, yeah, and Drugs is one of my favorite tracks of all time. Spoiler, but it's definitely going in my top 100.
Same. It's already in there. It's so good.
It is very good, and this is just so like inventive, and it's like sad white boy music, but it doesn't really feel that way because it's good.
True.
You know, I've been keeping my cards close to my chest about my feelings about Eden for basically as long as I've known all of you. And there's a reason. It's that I don't want to get shot. Oh, yeah, get your size out now, because it's going to get worse.
Oh,
I
boy.
don't like Eden. I think he is not a good vocalist. I do not like his voice. He represents this trend in music that is one of my least favorite things about music in the past 5-6 years, which is sad white boy music. Just fuck sad white boy music. You don't just because you're singing kind of nonchalantly as to come across like you're Xanax out of your mind because you're so depressed because you have all these feelings that no one else has ever discovered before. It doesn't mean that you're a good singer. Okay? Fuck the
My dog didn't
puppets
like
and
your
the
take.
vocals of the
I'm just
video.
gonna say that.
Yeah, the style and the attempt to project emotion does not equate to talent. I have I felt for a long time that Eden has been extremely overrated. And I think this is a good example of that. The only track on this entire endeavor is that I connected with it all is rock and roll, and that is only because of that guitar. Eden's voice is holding me back from liking most of these songs. What upsets me is, especially on Fumes, Eden turns in what I believe to be his best vocal performance on the entire thing, and he has some actual solid production behind it, and then wastes it by featuring an artist that is infinitely more talentless than he is, Nash, who, goddamn, don't let me spend too long talking about Nash, because God knows I could, about how much I hate him. But in any case, the vibe that I've always gotten from Eden is that his brain is made up of 40% Xanax and 40%, these feelings, and the other 20%. The other 20% is just the word fuck, because that seems to be the only word he knows.
Nice.
I will agree that Nash absolutely sucks.
True.
All right. Moving on to the next one on this list. Manslaughter VIP by Let's Be Friends, turning 7 years old already. Dang. This one, I know it's kind of a fan favorite, although I do enjoy it, but I don't find it to be as iconic as most do. I really turn more towards For the Win for that, because that's just an anthem. This one I do quite enjoy as well, but not to the level where I actually I'm actively coming back to it. It's just it's just one of the better tracks of that kind of era.
Yeah, this is probably like one of my favorite early on sort of Monster Cat tracks, not because it's like any production wise it's anything interesting. It's very sort of basic-y glitch hop Moomba kind of stuff. But it just goes so dummy hard, and it's just such dumb fun that I just can't help but really love it. It's just like a really sort of, it's like it's gamer music, but in like the best term. It's just like a very, very fun, well, fun isn't really the best word, but very energetic and sort of just off the rails enjoyable thing. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't really care about this that much, though it's a good listen, but I'm not gonna. I just don't come back to this. I never did actually. I kind of forgot it existed.
Hmm.
I like For the Win. I also don't love it either. But yeah, I don't know. Something about this style just feels kind of dated. Kind of now it's kind of unimpressing. Now it's still a fun listen, but nah.
Manslaughter VIP is a very fun song. I've always felt that way. Um, it's it's a very energetic song, and it's incredibly varied for a song that old. In that time period, it was all about drag and drop and repeat. Yeah, I think it's very varied. I love the Brian Regan sample. Brian Regan is hilarious. Check that guy out. Basically, the song makes me want to listen to Brian Regan, who's hilarious.
Nice. All right. Then only one throwback we're gonna cover from Thursday, and that is "Fire in the Hole" by Pegboard Nerds, turning 8 years old. And even though you can tell that this one's dated, I think it aged a whole lot better than a lot of other 2012 tracks. And I think I'm still actually able to enjoy it despite it being 8 years old. It really hasn't lost a whole lot of its charm. And yeah, it's still quite a fun track for me.
Yeah, I think it holds up really well. I agree with you that it does that, but on the other hand, I think the End is Near, Fire in the Hole VIP just does all of the ideas that are present in the song, but monumentally better. Just, yeah, it's just like it's fine, but it's nothing that I'll ever really come back to.
And this, it's a classic for me. I don't really find myself coming back to it, but it just throws me back to the time around the time I discovered the label through like Frame of Mind and Razor Sharp and stuff like that, and I would only listen to like Pegboard Nerds and Tristam. But now yeah, it holds up, but I don't love it. I don't come back to it. I didn't forget it existed. Like I for some reason have it on the back of my mind sometimes. Like along with most old Pegboard Nerds track, like I sometimes come back to them, but yeah, it's another old Monster Cat track that I really couldn't really connect with now. Like for some reason it just grew off me a bit, and yeah, maybe it didn't really age fantastically, but yeah.
Fire in the Hole is a classic. I love it. I think it holds up surprisingly well for the time period. And I think if it were updated with more modern production, it would be without a doubt my favorite out of that and End is Near. I think being at a faster tempo than End is Near helps the song tremendously, because like it really benefits from being a lot bouncier, and that's one of the main things that has helped me continue to enjoy this song even today.
All right. And then moving on to Friday, only one here as well. The Journey by AU5, featuring once again Trove, turning 2 years already. Holy cow. It really doesn't feel like it's been 2 years since that song dropped, but I know I mentioned this like less than an hour ago. Trove I really find to be a strong vocalist, and I think that this is one of, if not his best vocal performance that I have heard. He absolutely slays it here, but really the reason why this is so great is because of that production. AU5 does a great job of bringing us on, a journey, like the title says. It's not clickbait. It actually did what it said it would do on the cover, and I think it's just fantastic. I love all the little elements in there. Quite a lot of emotion in this one, and the drops pay off for me.
Yeah, I think this is still my favorite AU5 track, period. I just absolutely love this to bits. Well, I think it's not production-wise, it's not the best. That definitely goes to something else. but just the amount of emotion that this carries throughout the song, and Trove's vocals are just work so well with the track, and just every single sort of minute detail, especially in sort of the main chorus and the builds and whatnot, are just absolutely stunning.
Mm-hmm.
And the very last like few seconds where it just cuts out to like sort of just fades into ambience with a lot of like birds chirping in the background is just something that I love.
Yeah. I've always thought of AU5's mellow dub being kind of overrated as a genre as a whole. However, I think, yeah, this is stunning. Like, truly stunning. Trove's vocals, I mean, come on. They're so good. The drops, I feel they could have been a bit better. Definitely. Something kind of lacks some impact to me for some reason. Like, it builds up so much energy and emotion. But the drop kind of, it's so much emotion that the drop doesn't really hold up that well. It's not bad at all, but it doesn't really hold up in contrast to the rest of the track. However, I think the off drops are so fantastically enjoyable. It just completely boosts this track. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's so great. Even though if it had better drops, in my opinion, it could have been even greater somehow. But yeah, definitely, I think this was a turning point for AU5, because I think now you can see that he's focusing more on the Meldov stuff, at least on label.
Yeah, the Disciple. I was about to bring up the Disciple EP, like the opposite of that.
Yeah, on the Meldov stuff, at least on label, because I think he noticed that it really appeals to the fan base. I haven't been a huge fan of his 2020 releases so far. On label, off label, you have Answers, which is fucking phenomenal, but that's besides the point. Definitely one of the standouts in AU5's discography, and yeah, pretty solid.
The thing that I said about Trove before holds up. I don't think he's the greatest vocalist. It's not like he does this track a disservice. I think it was going to be weak in my eyes anyway for AU5 Meldub. He has a lot better. I can see why it's a fan favorite because it goes for trying to provoke emotion, but I have no emotions, so
Damn,
bro.
It's not like that. It's not like that was ever a good strategy for me.
All right. And then only 2 more items left. Saturday throwbacks. First one, A Moment in Time EP, turning 3 years old by Drulu. This one, I mean, there's really not a whole lot I can say about it that hasn't already been said. It's one of the best EPs that I know of. The only track I don't really care for is Back When 1997, but the rest of them, it's just stunning all around. And well, I can't confidently say this is Drulu's best work. I do think it's probably the best example of why people love them, because everything that people love about Drulu is on display here. Their amazing production, sound design, storytelling, the ability to blend different elements through seamlessly. And yeah, it's really just a fantastic EP for me. I really love this one.
I sort of alluded to this when I mentioned back when we were talking about Open Blinds, but I really think that like their newer stuff doesn't really hold a candle to this, and it's mainly because for a while, well, it's not anymore, this was my favorite EP period. Like, just overall, I think this is absolutely a stunning collection of future bass. I think each track feels completely unique and encapsulates a different part of Drulu's really unique sound at the time, while sounding very connected into this very sort of like plot line of like various moments in time that the duo have experienced that influence their music. But yeah, Sunburn is like probably one of my favorite tracks period as well. It's just such a I guess energetic yet emotionally stunning future bass piece that even like normally the repetitive lyrics in that song would get to me, but they really don't, and they always feel fresh despite it literally being 2 lines. And yeah, it's just borderline like near perfect in my eyes. Like it's just absolutely amazing, and it's by far like Drew Lou's peak in my opinion.
This is Drew Lou's best EP. Not by far, because I think, what was the other one? Not a Promise Is Made. The other one, The Choices We Face, is pretty close. Which might be a controversial opinion, but yeah, this one's brilliant. Just a brilliant EP all around. The intro I don't really care for, like back when, but the rest, everything else is just stunning, amazing. Might be weird, but Sunburn is actually one of my least favorites of the EP. It's still like a near borderline 10 out of 10, but just something about lily pads is just absolutely mind-boggling to me. Like how Drew Lou manipulates the vocal chops and lily pads, it's so revolutionary and so brilliant. I just can't help but feel blown away still to this day, even though I played it like 100 times plus. And well, I do think lily pads is not Drew Lou's peak. That would be, at least in my case, Limbo. But this is definitely the duo's best EP and the duo's most recognizable EP, and I'd argue this is the best entry point for any newcomer in the Drew Lou fan base. As like, if you're new to Drew Lou style, you should definitely start off listening to this EP because it's like perfect blend and perfect showcase of their style. Yeah.
It's an absolutely legendary EP. I'd be lying if I didn't say that. It's one of the greatest EPs I've ever heard, including one of my favorite songs of all time, Sunburn, which has those. I love those weird, off-kilter vocal chops that are throughout Sunburn. I think they're so unique and poignant. They're absolutely iconic. And just the entire EP is an absolute showcase of the best of Drew Lou's work. Exactly what they're good at. They're good at sound design. They're good at clean production, and they're very good at melodies and songwriting. It's absolute strengths. So listening to tracks like Sunburn. When I listen to Sunburn, it's like what I imagine Grant's song would sound like if he were good. Lily Pads is so unique, and it provokes emotions, which I didn't know I had.
Yo.
He found his emotions. This is so epic. All right, last one on this list, Turnaround by Run Funk, turning 8 years old. First thing I have to say is that this sounds actually quite spectacular for being 8 years old. I mean, at least for Monster Cat standards, it's aged pretty well, and I still quite enjoy it. It's a very nice and fun track, and it's very uplifting, and I quite respect it for that. So yeah, definitely a solid one in my eyes.
Yeah, Run Funk was like, they're sort of really interesting to me because they're very much like the first very funk leaning artist that wasn't Televisor. Strangely enough, while Televisor doesn't really change up their methods a lot, this like even in like individual parts of the song, this like especially in Turnaround, it goes into various different directions, which is really cool, especially in like a Monster Cat song that aged similar to the Manslaughter VIP. But yeah, I think the main reason why I really don't come back to this is that really for the label, it really feels like Run Funk walked so that Haywire and Volent and Glacier could run.
True.
Really, I think like all of their tracks really hold up a lot better, and I really don't see much of a reason to come back to this one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I agree entirely with what you said. The track itself is nice, it's fun, it's aged well, but I have no reason to come back to this, honestly.
This is one of the most underrated early tracks on Monster Cat. Maybe the most underrated. I never hear it talked about, and yet it remains to this day one of my absolute favorites. It's very, very funky, and it holds up surprisingly well in terms of production.
Yeah.
I think you can still tell that it's an older track, but I would not have guessed 8 years old. Hearing it, I still jam to it. I think it went largely unnoticed, and I think that's a shame because Run Funk, despite only having 2 releases on Monster Cat, was really one of the bright shining lights of the early days in 2012.
Yeah.
Around that time. Yeah. Turnaround still holds up. One of my favorite earlier ones.
Awesome. So anything else you guys want to quickly interject before we close this up?
Don't kill me because I hate Eden.
Understandable.
Have a nice
I
day.
was gonna say, yeah, I don't know. Tune in next week so you can hear me yell about half an orange like a deranged lunatic again.
Mm-hmm. And one more time, eat the rich.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and hopefully you guys tune in next week. See ya.